Hello everyone, welcome to Skill Wisdom videos. Please subscribe to our channel and press on bell icon to get a notification on new videos. You can also use comment section to post your queries. We will try to address them with the priorities. You can also follow our Facebook page and join our Telegram group for technology related discussion and updates. So these links you can find it on video description section. This video we are covering arrays. So first question comes in our mind is, what is array? Array is an object which can hold multiple elements within it. That means array will act as a container to store multiple elements. But the condition is all these elements should be of same type. That means you can store 10 numbers, you can store 10 string values, you can store 10 class A type of object. Anything you can store in this array, but all the individual elements should be of same type. So in other words, we'll tell array is a container or an object which can hold multiple elements of homogeneous type or same data type objects. Okay, so why we need this array? So think a scenario that I wanted to store the numbers 10 numbers. I wanted to store a 10 numbers. So in the normal, if you don't have an array, then what we need to do? We may need to end up in creating 10 variables, right? Each variable can hold one number. What is problem with that approach? So as a programmer, you need to remember all 10 variable names, right? And you need to keep a track of which variable, where, how you updated, right? So to avoid those kind of situation and optimize your code, arrays are introduced. Okay. So as we already said, arrays can hold multiple values, right? So the main advantage of this array is code optimization. Okay. So types. In arrays, we have two types. One is single dimension array and other one is multi-dimension array. So we'll see these types in detail going through this video. Okay, let's create a class, and I have just added a main function. Let's see how we can declare an array. So array can be declared in one of these three format. Okay, so here data type indicates what is the type of each individual element. Okay, and this is a variable name. Variable name can be user defined name. So the square bracket indicates this variable is of type array. So square bracket, you can add it as a postfix for your data type, or you can prefix with your variable name, or you can also postfix this square bracket with your variable name. So all these three types are valid, and there is no difference in this approach. Okay, so if you want to instantiate this array, just declaring an array is of no meaning. So you have to instantiate. In Java, how do you instantiate? We will instantiate using a new keyword. So I have just used a new keyword, and this is a data type. This data type should match with this data type, and you have to pass size, where size indicates how many elements this array can hold. Okay, so let's see these things with a example. So let's say I wanted to store 5 integer values. So I have just created a v1 of type integer. So this indicates the variable v1 is of type array and which can hold integer value. You can declare like this, or you can also do like this, where this square bracket is prefixed with variable name, and the third type is where square bracket can be prefixed with v3. So now let's instantiate it here. So data type of individual element is integer, right? So what we'll do now, v1 equal to new integer and 5. This indicates this v1 can hold 5 elements of type integer. Same way, you can also instantiate v2 and v3. Okay, so you can also do declaration and instantiation in a single line, like v4 int 5. Same way, you can also do the second approach, right, where your square bracket is prefixed with your variable name. That also you can do it in a single line, and even third approach also you can do it in a single line. Clear? So now whenever you declare any array and instantiate, right? So in memory, what happens is it will allocate a continuous memory for this array. So this continuous memory will be consist of n number of blocks. These number of blocks will be indicated with a size. Let's say when you say int 5, so the 5 blocks will be allocated continuously, and each block have a capability to hold one integer type of value. And these blocks internally indexed starting with 0, then second block will be 1, so on, right? So now if you want to initialize these blocks, right, because just I have created an object, I haven't stored anything in this, right? So now let's say if you want to store some number here, how you can access it? v1 of 0. When I say v1 of 0, it will go to this series of blocks and it will indicate 0 is an index, right? So it will indicate this block and 5 will be stored. Like that, you can store the value into the block whatever is required. The same way, you can also access the members, any block, whichever block you want. You have to just mention the reference name and then the index, which block, indicating the which block number, no, which block value you wanted to access. Let's run this one. So 5. I'm trying to print here v1 of 5, v1 of 0. That means v1 of 0. What is stored in 0th block? Number 5, right? Number 5. Okay, so there is one more type of initializing the array, that is single line initialization. So here we are not going to use any new keyword. So internally what this will do is it will initialize this array with these values and size will be fixed with whatever the number of values you passed. Here I passed 5 value, right? So this argument will be initialized with a size of 5 and each element will be stored whatever the elements we have passed it here, right? And this is called declaring an array with instantiation and initialization in a single line. Okay, so when we declare array like this in a memory, it will allocate a continuous block and each number will be stored in each block. Okay, now so at any point if you want to find the length of an array, okay, if you want to find a length of an array, so what you can do, we have a length function in array class that you can use it to find the length of an array dot length, right? This should return you, or this should give you the number of elements that is present in your blocks. Okay, now so if you want to update the value from any of these block, it's similar to how we accessed, right? So what you can do, array of 3. So when I say 3, so this block, so now the whatever the value is present in this block will be replaced with 13. So let's try to access this array of 3 before update. Okay, then after update, I'm just printing it just to make sure that values are updating properly or not. Let's run this program. You can see here length is returned as a 5. Then before updating, array of 3 is 9. Then it is 13, right? Okay, let's move to the next example. So let's declare an array. So when I declare this array in a memory, the continuous block will be allocated and it will be named as ARR, and indexing as we discussed, right? It will start with 0 to n. So now what we'll do, we'll try to print or iterate through each of these blocks and access the values. Okay, so as you see, index is starting with 0, right? And then 1, 2, 3. And each time I wanted to access the value of one block. So this is a repetition of code, right? Where first time I need to access block 1, then block 2, then block 3, right? So how we can do a same code multiple times, how we can execute a same set of code multiple times in Java, that is using a for loop, right? So now let's initialize some variable starting with 0. I'll do int I equal to 0. So I will start with index of 0. Each time I wanted to increase this I by 1, right? Because I is index is increasing 1 each time, right? So I have just add I plus plus. So till how many times this loop has to be executed? Till this I is less than array of length. Array of length here is 5, right? So I wanted to execute till 4. So that's why I given I is less than equal to less than array of length. Let's print array of I. Okay. So in the first loop I will become a 0, then it will print 5, then 3, then 8, so on, right? Let's execute this program. You can see here elements are printed. So there is one more way to print these things. Okay. So you may heard about for each loop in a Java, right? So let's see how we can iterate through this array using for each loop. The syntax for each loop is for each loop consists of colon. Okay. The right side of this colon, that is this part, you need to pass the container name, that is array variable name. Okay. Left side of this colon will indicate individual elements from this container. So individual elements, you need to tell what is the data type of individual element. Let's say it is a int. No? So I'll say int v. So now what happens? This for loop will repeat once for each element in this ARR. That means first time it will take first element from this ARR, assign it to v, then execute whatever code you are returning here. Then second time second element, third time third element, so on. Now let's print this v. Okay, let's click on run. You can see we are able to access all the elements. Let's move on to the next example. So I have just declared an array and instantiated here, but I haven't initialized it yet. So now let's see, if I haven't initialized it, what will store in your memory? That is called default value of an array, right? So I will just use print statement here. This is other way of printing all the elements from your array without using a for loop. Okay, let's run this. You can see by default, whenever I create an array of type integer, the default value will be 0. So this default value will be depends on what type of array you are creating. In case of integer, this will be 0, right? So let's create one more type, that is string. Okay, now let's print the default value of string, str, right, variable. So default value for string type is null. So now let's assume that I am going to create a array of float. Okay, let's print this. So float means it will be 0.0. Okay, let's move to next example. So let's create an array of size 5. Okay, I have just created an array of size 5, and I have created one more array of string type. Again, the size is 5. Okay, so now if you want to access the class type of an array, so what you can do, you can use a variable name, then get class, get name. So this will indicate the class name of an array. Okay, so I'm just printing this class name. Okay, and I will try to access the class name for this ARR1 also, and I will print it. Okay, so now let's run this program. You can see here. So array will create a classes in runtime. You can see the class names here, right? So each of these class names are different from for different array of different type. If it is an integer, then it is a square bracket I. If it is string, then java.lang, right? So these are all the class which will create in runtime. This is how you can access the class name of an array in runtime using variable name dot get class dot get name. Clear? Let's move to the next example. So here we'll see how we can take or how we can create a function with a parameter of array type. Okay, so in the main function, I will just declare an array. Okay, I'm declaring and instantiating and initializing everything in one line. Okay, so now I will create one function. public static void main, and for this function I'm passing one argument that is of an array. And this square bracket you can make it as a prefix for this ARR or a postfix for this ARR. So all those three are applicable here also. So this is how you can create a function which takes array as an parameter. Now if you want to call this function display function, you have to pass array argument, right? So I'm passing this ARR value for display function. Okay, so display function is just creating a, and it is just printing the initial elements of an array. If you observe here, I have used just print, right? So this means every element will be printed in a same line separated by this comma. It won't print in line, new line every time. It will be printing on a same line. Okay. Now, and this same display function I can also call by creating an array in one line. So this is also one way of creating an array. So here I am directly passing that right side part of an array, right? New and type of this data type of individual element, and I haven't mentioned the size. This size will by default take as a number of elements that you passed here. So in this case, size will be fine. So if you create any array and if you don't assign it to any variable, so like this is called anonymous array. So array without assigning to an variable, array without a reference is called anonymous array. Okay, so as I am printing it here in a same line, so just to differentiate between this display and this display, I'll write some new line here, that is system.out.println. So let's run this program. You can see, yeah, clear how to create a function which takes array as an input parameter and what is anonymous array. So anonymous array is nothing but array without a reference variable, that is called anonymous array. Okay, so let's move to the next example. So this time we'll see how to return array from a function. I'm creating one more function here, the get array. Okay, so inside the array I'm just added one array here. Okay, so here I'm returning that array element. So if you observe here, I have maintained return type as a int of type array. You can see it's matching with type. This is how you can create a function which is returning an array type. Okay, so let's call this one. I will just call get array function here, and I am assigning to some variable. This variable not necessarily should be same as like this. You can have any name here. Okay, now I will print this array. So this should array of 4 should print 5 2 7 8. This 8, it should print the value in the 4th position starting with index 0 1 2 3 4. That is, it should print 9. Let's run this. You can see 9. Clear how to create a function which returns array of element. Okay, let's move to the next example. Okay, let's create an array of size 4. So when I create array of size 4, the 4 blocks of memory will be allocated in your system, and each block is capable of holding one integer value, right? And these blocks will be indexed with 0 1 so on, right? So now if I wanted to store something on this 0th index, so what I need to do, I need to write ARR of 0 equal to 4. Then this 4 will be stored here. In the similar way, if I want to store something in this block, then I need to write ARR of 1 equal to, let's say, 6. Then 6 will be stored. So now what I will do, I will try to store some value out of this index. So I don't want to use 0 1 2 3. I will use some other index above this 3. So I'm just using 4 and I'm trying to store 10. So this 4 index is above 3, right? So we don't have any block for this. Okay, so after this I'm just using system.println as an indicator of end of my program. So when I run such a program, so usually what I will get, array out of index exception. Okay, so what it means is, it is telling us that you have allocated only 4 blocks of memory index starting 0 to 3, but you are trying to store some value in the index which is outside the currently allocated index. So that is not allowed in Java. So you have to operate your array within this index. If you try to do anything outside this index, you will get array index out of bound exception. And if you see this exception last line, right, you can see here first one, right, after add, you can see this should be indicating as a array ex, right. This will indicate as a class name. Then main has a function name where the exception is generated, that is main function. Then it is telling you 11. So 11 indicates row number where exception is generated, right? And this exception is called runtime exception because while compiling your code, you haven't got your exception. So array index out of bound exception is called a runtime exception, but because this exception will generate only during the runtime. There is no indication while writing your code. That's why we call it as a runtime exception. Okay, let's move to the next example. Okay, so I'm just creating an array which is holding 2416 as a value. That means size is 4 by default, right? So now I'm creating one more array with a name as a temp, and I'm assigning the existing array to this. Now the new created array, temp array, right? On this temp array, I will update one of the value. Let's say 0th value. I will update it to 10. Now let's print this array, ARR array. Let's print this. Okay. So let's see what happens here. When I create object ARR with these values in the memory, the continuous block of memory will be allocated and it will hold the values, whatever I have given here, right? So now whenever I create one more array by using the assignment operator, so here what happens is, so it will create one more reference for already existing memory. That means temp and array both will point to the same memory location. So now whenever I change anything to either temp or array, it should impact to the both of these references. That means when I do temp of 0 equal to 10, so basically it will change the value of 0th block, right? So now when I try to print array, that means array is also pointing to the same block, right? So this should print me 10416 now. Let's run this program. You can see 10416 is printing. So whenever you use assignment operator to copy array from one array to another array, indirectly both of these reference will point to the same memory. So changing to one reference will impact the other reference. Okay, so how we can avoid this situation? So in array we have something called clone function, right? So whenever you use clone function like this, okay, now instead of pointing this new array reference to the same memory location, so it will copy the elements into a different memory location, and this memory location will be referenced as new variable, that is temp. In this case, whenever I update temp of 0 to 10, only the new memory location will be updated. This will not impact in the already existing array. Let's run this one. You can see this time 2416. Okay, okay, let's move to the next example. So let's see how we can declare or initialize or create a multi-dimensional array. Okay, so like how we have seen in a single dimensional array, we have three different ways for declaring an single dimension array, right? Like you can prefix or postfix to a variable name, or you can postfix to a data type. In the similar way, for multiple dimension array also, we have a multiple ways to declare it. So multiple dimension means 2 dimension or 3 dimension, right? Depends on your dimension, you need to mention the pair of square bracket. If it is a 2 dimension, you will have 2 square brackets. If it is a 3, then you will have 3 square bracket. And these square brackets, either you can make it as a postfix for your data type, or you can make it as a prefix for your variable name, or you can make it as a postfix for your variable name. So these three types are similar to single dimension. And there is one more new type in multi-dimension, that you can also declare your variable, multi-dimensional variable, like one you can prefix and other one you can postfix. All four are equally valid. There is no difference in this. Okay, let's see an example for each of these type. So I'm declared v1, which is I'm just telling that v1 is of array type and which can hold multidimensional array. Each element is of integer type. So this is how you can do it in second way and third way and fourth way, right? So let's see how we can instantiate in multi-dimension array. So instantiation is similar to single dimension array. That is, you can do it using a new keyword, variable name. Then you can use new data type, and you need to give all dimension size. Okay. So in two dimension, first dimension indicates row and second dimension indicates column. Okay. So I'm doing v1 equal to here, right? So int 5 comma 4. So that means if you multiply these two number, right, 5 into 4, so 20. So total 20 numbers this v1 can hold now. Okay. Same way v2, v3, v4, right? So in the same way how we have done in single dimension array, you can also declare and instantiate multi-dimension array in a one line like this. Okay. So whenever you declare a multi-dimension array, something like this, okay, so internally how this does is the first dimension is, let's say, row, right? So what it will allocate, it will allocate a continuous block of memory. Okay. So as I mentioned 3 here, right? So it will indexing from 0 to 3 blocks of memory, and each of these blocks, like 0th block or 1th block and second block, internally will have again one more block of continuous memory which will hold the size, column size, whatever you have given here. So I have given a column size as a 4, right? So each of these individual block again consists of internally 4 blocks. These are all called columns. Okay. So these will be indexed like 0, 1, 2, and these will be indexed with 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So now if you want to initialize it, right? So now, for example, when I say v5 of 0 of 0, right? So how this works is, first it will go to the row, so 0 block, right? 0 block. It will take a reference of this, then it will go continuous block here, and again here 0. So if you want to access this block, this is 0 of 1, right? So if you want to access this block, this is 2 of 3, right? So when I say 2 of 3, so it will go to the second block, then internally it will move to the third block within that, then it will store 10 here. In the same way, you can also access, like when I say v5 of 0, right? So 8 should be printing. Let's run this program. You can see 8 is printing. Let's move to the next example. Okay, so now we'll see how we can iterate through this multidimensional array to print it. Okay, so I'm just declaring, instantiating, and initializing array in one line, how I have done it in one dimension array. So if you see here, I have inner 3 blocks, right? So that means 3 rows. Then each of these row is having a 5 columns. So v1 will be of size 3 of 4, like this, right? So you can see the first block is consist of 2, 4, 5, 5. Second is 3, 5, 7, 9, 3, 5, 7, 9, and third one is 2, 6, 1, 9, like this. And indexing will be accordingly named. Okay. So now I need to repeat this loop, right? So what I need to do, I need to repeat for each of these row, right? So what I will do, I will add a for loop int I equal to 0, and v1 of length indicates number of rows, right? So I wanted to repeat for each of these block. For each of these blocks, do you have a single block here? No, right? Again, we have a multiple blocks, right? So I will use one more for loop internally, where j will start with 0 and till when v1 of I. v1 of I means individual blocks, right? Length of this one, that indicates column size, right? v1 of I dot length. And now inside this for loop, I'm just printing v1 of I of j. So I starts with 0. So once I is initialized, inner loop will start from 0 to column size, right? So 0 to 3. So what it will do, 0 of 0, 0 of 1, that is 0 of 1, 0 of 2, 0 of 3, like this. Then I will increment 1 of 0, 1 of 2, 1 of 1, 1 of 2, 1 of 3, so on, right? So as I have used print statement here, so that each of these will be printing in a same line separated by space. Okay. After this, one block completes. After this inner loop completes, that means one row completes. I wanted to add one new line. So I'm just writing blank println statement here. Let's run this program. You can see all elements are printed here. Clear how to loop through multi-dimensional array? Okay, so let's move to the next example. Okay, so here we are going to discuss about Jagged Array. So Jagged Array means what? So this is same as a multi-dimensional array, but in Jagged Array, each row will have a different size of column, right? So that means you can see here previously when we are declaring our array, so we used to pass both the sizes, row and column size. So when you pass the column size, here 1, 2, whatever the column size you will pass, the same column size will be applicable for all the rows. But here I haven't passed the column size. Okay, so what I will do now, so v1 of 0, I will initialize with these numbers. That means the 0th row, I will have 3 columns, 2, 4, 5. These are all the values on each column, right? The same way, v1 of 1, I will have 4 values. So that means the 0th row is having a 3 columns and first row is having a 4th column. And the next one, you can also initialize something like this, right? So second row, I'm initializing with 2 columns. The first column consists of 2 and second column consists of 6. So let's iterate. This something looks like this, right? You can see here each of these row will have a different columns. This is called Jagged Array. Okay, let's write a code to print Jagged Array. This is same as how we have iterated previously. Okay, let's run this one. You can see, yeah, we are able to iterate it. So the only thing is Jagged Array means Jagged Array is a multi-dimensional array where each row is having a different number of columns. Clear? Let's see what is the advantage of using arrays. So one is code optimization, right? So what is code optimization? If you want to store 10 variable, you need to create a 10 variables to store 10 values, right? Which will increase your complexity of code and also line of code, and it is difficult to remember all 10 variables also. Instead of that, we can have one array variable which can hold multiple values. And array will help you in quicker access by using indexing, right? Let's see what is the disadvantage of this array, right? So disadvantage is array always requires the continuous memory allocation. Let's say if you say size is 4, then 4 blocks should allocate continuously in your memory, right? But when you work on a real time, you may have a array size is like tens in thousands and lakhs, right? In that case, it is difficult to find the blocks continuously, right? So while practicing, we are using a smaller size that won't create any issue. But in real programs, you might have array of like thousands or 10,000 kind of a size. In that case, we may face some problem, right? Then the array size is fixed. You cannot change the size, right? We have already seen that if you try to store elements in an array which is greater than allocated size, usually we'll get it as a array index out of bound exception, runtime exception, right? So array size is always fixed. You need to define the array size while declaring an array or while instantiating an array. And third one is, so it is difficult to modify your array. That means modify is not like updating the values. For example, you wanted to insert any value in middle of your array, that is difficult. In the same way, if you want to delete an array, I mean if you want to delete any element in an array, that is also difficult task because array size is fixed. You cannot increase or decrease the size at any point, right? So these are all some of the advantage and disadvantages of array. Thank you all.